Welcome back to Catch Some SoulShine. It's season 2. My next guest is Deb Lawless-Miller. She wrote the book One.Little.Pill. And she talks about living an authentic life in recovery. In this episode, I'm thrilled for you to hear all the beauty that she has experienced in this lifetime since embarking on this journey of recovery. So, buckle up, get a cup of coffee, because it's time to catch some soulshine. One of the things that I want to recircle on that you talked about is that we're all meant to love.
Mhm.
And when Brad died, and I had been in recovery for several years, I just threw myself into helping others.
Mm.
And it did carry me to a certain extent through that horrible darkness. But then I realized that I was neglecting the most important person in my life, and that person was me.
Mm.
And then the opportunity came up for me to contribute to this book, Radical Self-Love. It really made me turn the glasses around, look at me, and say, hey, what are you doing for you? I firmly believe still in helping others and doing this work, but it's just like the story of the airplane where they say, I know you want to save your kids, but if we're going down in a crash, you better put that oxygen on you first.
Yeah.
Because you can't help anybody if you don't put it on you first.
Yeah.
And then you can help a lot of people. So I had to learn that. And I don't know that there was a huge focus on that in the 12 steps. And we really talk about service, and it's great. And I think it's life-saving. But that radical self-love
Mhm.
is imperative, because you cannot pour from an empty cup or a halfway cup. You have to fill your cup all the time. We are meant to love is just a beautiful statement, because yes, we are meant to love everyone, including us. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and I learned this through Ohio Can, the language that we use to talk about addiction and substance use disorder. And in our 12-step recovery, we call people drug addicts, alcoholics. That is like nails on a chalkboard for me. And I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
And there's research backing this. I'm a research guru. But when Brad died, someone said to me, well, Dawn, he was just a drug addict. And so I don't use that term anymore. And the research is clear. How we speak about ourselves really matters.
Yeah.
So I said, well, no, that's not who he was. His name was Brad, and he was my son.
Mhm.
So I know, and in the rooms and what have you, out of respect for those programs, those terms are acceptable. I get it. But I feel like it's up to me, it's up to us to change the culture of how we talk about people
Mhm.
who are suffering from substance use, obesity, all these different diseases. It's people first.
Yeah.
I am Dawn. I just happen to be a person in long-term recovery.
Right.
I am a person who has experienced extraordinary grief in my life. But what I really am is happy, joyous, and free.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring that up because I think you have a really powerful platform.
Yeah.
And I had to be reminded, like when I first started changing my language, it's so ingrained after years and years and years.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. That's not who I see. I
Yeah.
see Dawn.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
wow, yeah. But it still didn't click
Yeah.
until Brad died.
Yes.
And then it clicked in a
Yes.
big way.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And it's true. The language is changing, substance use disorder instead of addict. But when you're part of this recovery for so long, and that's how it's, always been spoken
Yeah,
about, it does. It takes a minute. It
absolutely.
takes a hot minute for sure.
Yeah. You're a change agent. So I just wanted to bring that up, not to
Yeah.
call you out,
Oh,
just
no,
to
it's
educate. Yeah,
absolutely,
provide
it's so
some
important.
education.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you did, because it's true. even in the books that we're creating and reading and, everything, it's substance use disorder.
This book, you talk about your journey of
Mhm.
addiction and the darkness, and then you really focus on the light afterward and, how to live an empowered life and a beautiful life and the things that you can do. And I'd like you to speak about that a little bit with, maybe somebody that needs to hear it.
There was the addiction part and how that happened, how the recovery part and how that happened. And then I talk a lot about the growth, the personal growth. I talk about the 12 steps. I tell how I went through the steps. I wanted people to know that it's not scary. It's not a scary thing to do. So I shared with them how I did it. And then I talked about sponsorship, being a sponsor, having a sponsor, losing a sponsor, being in recovery and starting that process of cleaning out the cobwebs in your brain and getting all the skeletons out of the closet. Really talking about when I was sick in my addiction and all of the lies and the arrests, all the legal things I did and how I carried that. I talk about it kind of being like a canister in me, in my soul, and it was so dark. All of those lies and secrets and the pain and the this and the that, and I just kept shoving it down and pretending it wasn't happening. And then I'm carrying around this really dark, heavy canister inside of me, and it's so painful that all I can do is take pain meds to get rid of the pain. Well, working through the steps in recovery and having a sponsor and everything, you pour that canister out and you go through it and you decide what is worth even talking about and what is not, and then the next thing you know, after all the work you've done, that canister is wide open and it's empty. And then you allow all of the positive things, the light, the love, all the things that you're now seeing because you're clear and you've gotten rid of all of the minutia that was in your head. And now you're open to receiving all the beautiful things that life has to offer. So now your canister is filled with all of those beautiful things that aren't painful anymore. As time goes on, you're going to have some things that you're going to want to throw down there, but you learn quickly that you don't need to carry that around with you. You can talk about it, you can talk through it, because you want your inside spirit to be light and bright and airy and radiate through you. You don't want that darkness in you anymore. And that's how you start living. And then when you shift like that, you start to see all of the beauty in this world and in the people around you. And yeah, there's still bad and there's still darkness and there's still this, but you learn not to have to carry that around with you. You work through it, you talk about it, you figure out the best ways to handle situations. And it always comes back to, you can't control anybody else in this world. All you can control is the way that you react to somebody's behavior or to a situation. I learned that a long time ago, that I'd much rather live in the light than in the dark. It feels better and you attract more people to you that are like-minded. And I choose to surround myself with people that are like-minded. I work with people in the program that, are still carry that darkness. And it's my responsibility with them to help them to get through that as a sponsor. But I don't take that on anymore. I help them to get through it. Life is short and I want to live the best possible life that I can.
Same, girl. Same. Yes.
That's it.
That canister, I just love I'm such a visual.
Yeah, me
of course, too. Right? You were talking about that. And I saw this illustration about generational trauma. Okay. So your great grandmother has this big, dark cup of liquid. And then that's poured into the next generation. And then that's poured into the next generation. And here's your cup. Okay. So you got half a cup of clear water, and then they pour in this dark water. But then visualization shows them pouring in water.
Mm.
and it starts to overflow. It gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, and you just keep pouring, keep
Yeah.
pouring, keep pouring, and then it's light. And then I think about that and I think what you talked about was just that,
Yeah.
right? But
Mhm.
this water is always here. But
Right.
you got to keep and you got to keep pouring it in,
Yes.
right? I always tell people my brain's like a sponge and it's really moist and it's full of water. But if I don't keep pouring water
Yeah.
on it, it'll shrivel up and
Yeah.
dry up.
Yeah.
So I always have to be pouring that goodness
Right.
into the cup of water, into my brain.
Right.
And that's what a good fellowship, a good program or group of people,
Community. Right.
that a community can do for you, associating with those kind of people and making them part of your life.
Well, here's another visual for you. I use this with my sponsees a lot because it's exactly what happened to me. Every time you go into a meeting or you talk with another alcoholic, or you have a conversation regarding recovery, if you picture yourself as a tree, and every time that your roots, every single time you talk about recovery, your roots get deeper and deeper into the ground. Okay. And this is
Mhm.
exactly what happened to me when I threw myself into my recovery early on, and I was really engaged in program itself. So by the time the storm hit, and it always hits,
Mhm.
that storm, which for me was Hunter's illness, it definitely bent me. I lost a couple limbs and a lot of leaves, but man, it didn't break me because my roots were so deep into the ground. I was solid. All of my friends and my fellowship surrounded me and held me up, even when I was going to the, oh no, I'm going to break. I'm going to fall. No, you're not. You'll get bumps and bruises, but you're never going to go down.
I just talked about something like this last night with Brad's story. And I said, I visualize him like a lot of people in early recovery, walking down the sidewalk. Sometimes somebody will trip and fall, scrape their knee, get back up. And you have another person that will fall and maybe fall off the curb and twist an ankle. It takes a little bit longer to get back up, but they'll get back on the sidewalk. And then you have somebody that falls off the sidewalk, gets really banged up in the street, maybe loses a limb or something, but eventually they learn to walk again.
Mhm.
And then you have other people that are walking down the sidewalk and somebody comes along and pushes them off the sidewalk in front of a Mack truck. But what you said, if you are somebody that has yourself surrounded by a group of people, when that other person comes along and tries to push you off the sidewalk in front of the Mack truck, they won't be able to.
Right.
That is such an important perspective on the importance of community,
Right.
because you're right, life does happen. And like with you, with Hunter's illness, you had that core group of people surrounding you. And I also believe this, and I think that's probably why we were drawn together. Those of us that have faced some of life's biggest challenges are able to contrast and shine the brightest. Doesn't mean that everybody does, because sometimes people get stuck in that darkness. Life is contrast. You can't have hate without love.
Yeah.
You can't have darkness without light. There's yes, there's no. Everything in life is contrast. The deeper you go into the darkness, the brighter you're able to shine.
Yeah.
Should you start doing these things that are going to make you bright and happy and joyous and free.
Yeah. Absolutely. You don't know the power of the light and the love unless you've experienced the darkness. I would wish more than anything that my son didn't have to go through what he went through, and that two legs to walk on and all of that. But I also understand that I was chosen as his mother to go through that with him, because I, on the other side of that, can carry a message of hope to people. That's what I feel I was put on this earth for, to use the hard lessons for the good of others. And what I went through, my experience wasn't even close to what you've been going through and what you went through. And people will say that to me. They'll say something and they'll be like, well, I can't even talk to you about this because compared to what you went through. I said, no, it's all relative. Pain
Exactly.
is pain. Even if you stubbed your toe, you can help somebody else who stubs their toe by saying, like, just give it like 3 more minutes and it's going to feel better. It doesn't matter. You've been through something that somebody else is going through and you're there to help them.
Exactly. That's so beautiful. Everything you said, I align with, because I do get that a lot. They're like, oh my gosh, you've lost so many people and you've had I can't even, that's not the point.
Right.
Like, we all have stuff.
Yeah.
And the point is, what are you going to do with it? Do I like that happened to me? No. Do I, want that for me? No. What are you going to do about it? I chose to do something positive. And I love the book. I know people can find it on Amazon,
Yes,
right?
Amazon.com.
And I want you to send me a link. I'll have that in the comments of the podcast.
Okay.
If somebody has a project or something that they want to do,
right.
They can reach out to you as well, correct?
Yes, indeed. So I do speaking engagements. I love to get in front of people who really need a hug. They need to know that they're going to be okay. Their loved one is going to be okay. They can get in touch with me. My website is deblawless-miller.com. And they can reach me at deblawless-miller.com. For anybody that's listening out there and they're struggling with either themselves, whether or not recovery is right for them, or a loved one, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. And maybe I can give you a couple words of advice as far as kind and loving ways to talk to the one suffering, or kind and loving ways to talk to yourself. We need to talk to yourself lovingly as well.
Right.
But any way I can help, I'd be happy to.
I want to mention that the book is called One Little Pill, because I don't think we've said that.
No, we haven't.
If people are looking for the book, it's called One Little Pill.
It actually is 1 period, little period, pill period. Because if you type in one little pill, you might get a book about Viagra.
I think that we all have a certain person that we're trying to reach. And I love that you illustrated that so beautifully. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a really inspiring conversation. And again, I will have all the links in the comments. I wanted to thank you personally and invite you to download a free journal that I've created featuring some of my art. And if you'd like a free print from my Rooted in Faith collection, please go to dawnreneebeauvais.com and I will drop links in the comments. Hit that bell if you're on YouTube and subscribe to the channel on Apple or Spotify. Leave me a rating because that really does help expand the reach. Keep catching that soul shine. I'll see you next week.